Hello, Cellar and friends. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm here with the Asian Sommeliers as we go behind the scenes at Castello Banfi to explore some of their beautiful wines from Tuscany. So joining me today, I have 4 members of the esteemed group, the Asian Sommeliers, representing different countries across Southeast Asia. So from Malaysia, we have Mr. Anthony Yeong. Mr. Yeong is a WSET certified wine and sake educator and holds the level 4 WSET diploma. From Singapore, we have Mr. Daisuke Kawai. He's a certified WSET educator, wine judge, and champion of Asia's Best Sommelier in 2017. Joining us again, we have from Japan, Mr. Isao Miyajima. He's a journalist and wine critic, also responsible for the Japanese publication of the Gambero Rosso Italian Wine Guide. And also returning from China, we have Mr. Roger Yeong, Mr. Roger Chow, WSET certified wine educator, and who currently also works in education and consulting. Thanks so much for joining me, all of you. Some of you, it's good to see you again. And for the rest of you, thanks for joining us for the first time. We're now going to join some of the members of Castello Banfi as well. We're joining Mr. Enrico Villierchio, the general manager at Banfi, and Mr. Gianni Savelli, the chief agronomist, who are in the vineyard currently.
Hi. Hi, good morning. Or good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We are here in the vineyards in a very typical rainy day of November in the center of Castello Banfi. And we are located here in a vineyard. I think you can see in the background the castle. Where is Perso Castel? We are in the middle of around the castle, and as you know, Castello Banfi, we are located in Montalcino, and Castello Banfi was founded in 1978 from the Mariani family, where we started this project from scratch, arriving in Montalcino in the 78 because John and Derry Mariani were wine importer in US since the second generation of wine importer into the US market, and predominantly known for also the Italian wine market developed in US. John particularly was traveling a lot around Europe and around Italy, and when he came to Montalcino for the first time in the early 70s, he was really fascinated by this territory. This territory was completely different from now. As not so developed. So he decided to start this Castello Banfi project starting in 78, assembling basically a property of about 2,800 hectares of land, with the center, the Castello of Poggia le Mura, which is basically the symbol of our estate, and developing more than 800 hectares of vineyards, plus other agricultural cultivation of this area, particularly was cereals, plants, cherries, and other little fruit cultivation. Basically, the property was assembled between 78 and 1983. So since 1983, this is what is Castello Banfi is today. Particularly in the area of Montalcino, of course, main varieties is Sangiovese for use both for Brunello di Montalcino, Rosso di Montalcino, also Chianti and IGT Toscana. Sangiovese is representing about 50% of our vineyards, of our 800 hectares of vineyard cultivated in Montalcino, and is also the variety that since the beginning we dedicated project of research, a lot of project of research, both in the vineyards and both in terms of selection of these variety in order to identify also the best individuals for Brunello di Montalcino. Montalcino is a unique territory. Montalcino is a unique territory because both it's something very unique in the world, having the two main appellations that are Brunello and Rosso di Montalcino, 100% strictly based on the Sangiovese variety. This is something that is fascinating from also a technical standpoint, in order to have this territory so concentrated on one unique variety like Sangiovese, with the different expression that we have in the Rosso di Montalcino, that is, let's say, a younger expression of Sangiovese vineyards, and Brunello di Montalcino, that is the flagship of Montalcino, basically developed after more than 4 years of winery work. And this is Sangiovese is a variety very, let's say, sensitive to climate condition, to terroir. So Montalcino is, and our estate is a constellation of vineyards of Sangiovese that basically each single vineyard is a kind of like a unique history by itself, based on the terroir, based on the clone used, based on the location of the vineyard, the exposition. So in order probably to have a more in-depth aspect of what is the viticultural aspect of Montalcino and predominant Sangiovese, we have here Gianni Savelli that can introduce you on some of our major projects that we did in Castello Banfi.
Ciao.
Sì. Siamo
In,
abbracciati.
Banfi, da quando è arrivato a Montalcino, molto ha investito per quanto riguarda lo sviluppo, la ricerca e la sperimentazione.
Banfi, since arrived in Montalcino in 1978, invested a lot in the research, development, and study of this territory.
In modo particolare, gli argomenti principalmente trattati sono stati quelli della zonazione, visto le dimensioni dell'azienda.
Particularly, the first main project was a zonation, based on also on the dimension of the estate.
La zonazione non è altro che lo studio di un territorio volto a individuare quali sono i migliori terroir per ogni singolo vigneto, singolo vitigno, e quali più giuste tecniche di produzione ha questo singolo vitigno.
Zonation is a study that was focused in order to understand, to study the different terroirs present in our estates, and which one was the best for different varieties, and within also the same varieties, in which terroir what is the best, let's say, marriage between varieties and technique of cultivation system.
Un altro argomento molto trattato è stato quello della selezione clonale sul Sangiovese.
Another parallel to this, another very important project has been the clonal selection on Sangiovese.
Quando Banfi è arrivato a Montalcino a fine degli anni 70, il Sangiovese era una posizione minoritaria verso altre varietà tipo internazionali, tipo Cabernet o Chardonnay, in quanto l'argomento della selezione clonale era stata ancora poco trattata. Addirittura in quel momento c'era solo 3-4 cloni di Sangiovese.
When we arrived in Montalcino, Sangiovese as a variety, in terms of clonal study, was, let's say, not so developed versus other varieties. An example is Cabernet Sauvignon or Chardonnay. There were only, at that time, only 3-4 clones of Sangiovese that were identified and classified.
Questo argomento è stato trattato principalmente con l'Università di Milano, in modo particolare col professor Scienza, e è stato preso del materiale presente sia in azienda che nelle zone circostanti, alla fine di recuperare il materiale più possibile. Questo materiale poi è stato messo a dimora in un campo catalogo.
This project started with the University of Milan, in particular with Attilio Scienza, and started with the first survey of what were the individuals present into the estate. And these individuals then were selected and planted in a field catalog.
Questo programma è durato circa 7-8 anni, in quanto prima 3 anni per portare a produzione il vigneto e poi 3 anni di selezione e di sperimentazione con microvinificazione di questi singoli cloni.
This project, the first phase was between 7-8 years, because you have to we planted the field catalog with all the individuals, all the presumed clones, and then there was the first 3 years to have the first production, and then another 3-4 years of micro-vinification following a standard protocol for each single clone, in order to arrive to have a real classification of the different clones.
Siamo partiti da 400 presunti cloni e siamo arrivati all'omologazione di 15 cloni. E questa selezione clonale però è chiamata selezione clonale debole, in quanto non siamo andati a ricercare un superclone, ma nel nostro caso 3 cloni che miscelati insieme potessero dare il miglior risultato finale del vino.
We arrive at the end of this process to classify 15 clones that are registered now also in the national catalog in Italy for the Sangiovese cultivation, because I'm just adding something to Gianni, that in Italy you can plant and you can use rootstock and vine that are officially registered in the national and in the regional catalogs that are what is allowed to the nursery to reproduce and then to the producer to plant in their field. These 15 clones, this project that
gentlemen, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but we do need to get started on the tasting, and perhaps we can talk some more about the different clones of Sangiovese, etc. while we're tasting through the wines. We're going to drive back to the winery now, and we can also chat with you some more in the car on the way.
Now we are in the vineyard of Poggio alle Mura, and we are moving then to the winery, and where we can taste, and during the tasting we can discuss more about the Poggio alle Mura Brunello and the clonal project.
Perfect.
Okay? We move.
Great.
Questo è tuo.
All right, so we're going to head back to the cellar now. I believe in the cellar we have Mr. Gabriele Pazzaglia, the winemaker, and we are going to start tasting. Hi, how are you? So we're going to start our tasting with Mr. Anthony Yeong as well. Sorry, I'm just checking here. We're doing the Banfi Chianti Classico Reserva, EOCG, the 2016. You got it there? It's open already? Perfect.
I'm driving now from the vineyard to the winery, and in 5 minutes we can start the tasting. In the meantime, while driving, I'm asking if I have any question about what we have discussed before about the viticultural projects and the estate.
So I have a question for you, which is, so several of the wines that we're tasting today, the Brunello and the Chianti, they're both based on Sangiovese, but then one of the Bolgheri Rosso that we're tasting is based on Cabernet Sauvignon and Cab Franc. So when did you start producing those grapes? Were those originally varietals you produced at the vineyard as well, or did you start with Sangiovese and move on to those?
No, we started with, let's say, Sangiovese, in the sense that the project in Montalcino started. Montalcino, we produce only Rosso di Montalcino, Brunello, and then also we have the Chianti Classico that we started in our Chianti Classico project. Bolgheri It's a project that started at the beginning of around 2010. The project in Bolgheri, where we purchased a vineyard located in Bolgheri that is on the coast side of Tuscany. And Bolgheri is, let's say, the appellation in Tuscany less Sangiovese in terms of percentage, because basically Bolgheri is predominantly based on Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, a little bit of Petit Verdot. There is also some Sangiovese produced in Bolgheri, but is a very minority part compared to the other Tuscan appellation that from Chianti to Brunello di Montalcino, almost all the Tuscan traditional appellation are they have a percentage of Sangiovese that is going from 75%, that example, the Chianti, 80% Chianti Classico, 100% Brunello di Montalcino. Bolgheri is basically the other face of the medal, where the most important variety in Bolgheri is Cabernet Sauvignon.
And have you noticed a difference in, is there a difference in the popularity of the different appellations in Asia? Do you have certain ones that do better than others?
But for what concerns Asia, from my perspective, I see that there is a lot of appreciation demand for what concerns Brunello as well as Chianti Classico. Bolgheri is, in my opinion, probably a new appellation, also because the development of Bolgheri happened mostly in the last, let's say, 15 years. And this is an appellation that is growing in a certain market, is growing, driven by some specific brand initially that historically were more focused on Bolgheri than another appellation, but now is an appellation that is more and more developing also on the export market, and particularly also in the different Asian countries that we are.
Interesting. Yeah. I know Bolgheri is very popular in the US, where I am, well known with the Super Tuscans, but I was not aware how popular it is in Asia right now. Of course, Brunello is recognized around the world, and Chianti as well. I would also like to remind all of our friends who are tuning in, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat, and I will ask them to our colleagues who are joining us today, either the members of Banfi or the sommeliers themselves. Are you able to travel to the Asian markets right now, or are you staying in Italy?
So far, unfortunately, we are in a second lockdown here in Tuscany and in Italy, and so far flights are work better. In theory, you could travel, but you have to do quarantine in and out of the country, and in any case, still certain countries are completely closed to traveling. That is unfortunately what we are experiencing since basically this February. We hope that situation will, because I love webinar, Zoom, and everything, but I don't think that we can live forever in tasting wine through a Zoom channel. So.
Yes, I know. I've done so many tastings on Zoom during this lockdown, and they're great. But it's fun to taste with people in person, to see people live, and to visit the countries where your wines are being drunk. Are we back at the castle now?
We are at the winery. We are just down at the winery, and we will join Gabriele for what concerns the tasting.
Oh, that looks good. So we're tasting in the barrel room at the winery. Is that where you're aging the wines?
Yes, the tasting has been organized in the barrel room.
It's a little bit rainy there today.
It's November. Here we are.
It's such a beautiful space you have there.
Sì, aspetto quella. Sì.
So we are here with Gabriele Pazzaglia, and we will taste 4 wines, 3 from Tuscany and 1 not from Tuscany but from our winery Piedmont. We have the Chianti Classico Riserva 2016 from the Chianti Classico region, then our Bolgheri Asca 2017 vintage from our Bolgheri property, and our Poggio alle Mura 2015 vintage that we just were before in the vineyard where this wine is coming from. And last but not least, our Rosa Regale Brachetto d'Acqui from our Piedmontese estate. Gabriele, tutti tuoi.
Ciao, buongiorno, benvenuti nella nostra cantina di affinamento. Siamo in un'area in cui vedete molte barrique, molti fusti. In realtà non sono barrique propriamente dette perché sono dei contenitori da 350 litri.
We have organized this tasting in our winery, and we are surrounded by barrel. This is the typical size of barrel that we are using for aging of our wine. That is not the traditional French 225 liters, but we use barrel of 350 liters of different wood and different coolage.
Abbiamo iniziato ad usare questo tipo di formato fin dall'inizio, quindi a Banfi fin dai primi anni 80 abbiamo utilizzato queste barrique, questi fusti da 350 litri. In realtà sui sangiovesi ci stiamo spostando verso dimensioni un po' più grandi, quindi botti da 90-60 ettolitri e botti da 40 ettolitri.
We use, at the beginning, we started predominantly with this barrel of 350 liters in our aging process that is used predominantly from our Super Tuscan and IGT, while for what concerns the Sangiovese, both for Chianti Classico and for Brunello, we use also a percentage of big barrel of 60 hectoliters, 90 hectoliters, and in the last time we have introduced also 40 hectoliters. Generally, the production of aging of Brunello and the Sangiovese in general, also for Chianti Classico, is going more to big barrel and less in the smaller barrel.
Il legno è molto importante per la nostra produzione. Pensate che i nostri vigneti di Brunello di Montalcino, che avete visto anche con Enrico e Gianni, vengono vinificati fin dall'inizio in serbatoi ibridi in acciaio e legno, la nostra zona di vinificazione orale.
Wood is very important in predominantly Brunello di Montalcino process and in Chianti Classico. Consider also that all our vineyards dedicated to Brunello are vinified since the beginning in our Horizon tanks, that is an hybrid tanks on wood and stainless steel.
Partendo dal primo vino in degustazione oggi, il Chianti Classico Riserva 2016, si fa un salto indietro. L'annata 2016 è stata un'annata molto importante in Toscana, un'annata grande, dalle caratteristiche anche meteoclimatiche interessanti. Abbiamo avuto una primavera con una buona piovosità, una primavera regolare, un'estate con delle temperature non troppo elevate, non eccessive, che hanno permesso ai nostri vigneti di arrivare a maturazione in maniera regolarissima.
We start with tasting with our Chianti Classico Riserva 16 vintage. Going back to the 16 vintage has been a very interesting, very positive vintage for this territory, for Tuscany, with a nice spring, a good level of spring during the good level of rain, during the springtime. Summer regular, with not a peak of temperature, but a very regular summer, followed by a very long season during the harvesting time.
Anche nella zona del Chianti Classico siamo andati a raccogliere le uve di Sangiovese, che rappresentano poi la base strutturale di questo grande vino, nella seconda metà di settembre, con una vendemmia molto regolare. Ci ricordiamo invece che nella fine di settembre fino anche ai primi di ottobre abbiamo avuto delle piogge che hanno reso l'ultima fase di vendemmia un po' più difficile.
For what concerns Sangiovese, in the 16 vintage, generally the harvesting season was very positive for all the month of September. In fact, the Sangiovese, most of the Sangiovese, also in the Chianti Classico area, were harvested in the second part of September. We had then some rain affecting the last days of September, beginning of October, that create some, let's say, stress to the winemakers for the beginning of October, but not for what concerns the Sangiovese part.
So I would like to I'd like to bring in Mr. Anthony Yeong as well, who's going from Malaysia. He will be the one tasting the wine with you, so we're going to add him in. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Good afternoon, Enrico, Gabriel. Thanks, Sheda. Yeah, I just took this wine out from the chiller, so I think it should be enjoyed between 15 to 18 degrees Celsius, because in Malaysia, room temperature is very hot, 25 to 30. Yeah. Hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
Enrico, can you hear us?
Hello, can you? Everything okay? Seda, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. I don't think they
Okay,
can hear us
good.
right now.
Okay.
Anthony, do you want to talk through a little bit of the tasting?
Today, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to share with you the Chianti Classico Reserva, vintage 2016. As I've said just now, I have just taken this bottle out from the chiller. It should be enjoyed slightly chilled, 15 to 18 degrees. Unlike Malaysia, room temperature is about 20-25, which is very warm. So appearance, medium ruby in color, is showing a lot of teenager, a lot of vibrancy. Although it's winter in Italy, but on the nose, this wine still it's very vibrant. Violet floral notes, a lot of red fruits. I smell on my nose. I get a lot of cranberry, sour cherry, red plum. A bit on herbal notes, some thymes and basil, and some black peppery notes as well. Something very interesting. Although this is made predominantly from Sangiovese grapes, which has a lot of red, vibrant fruits, I do get a bit of blackberry, blackcurrant. I understand for Chianti Classico, we have a minimum 80% of Sangiovese. I think this is blended with a bit of Cabernet Sauvignon. Is that true, Gabriele?
È un blend con un po' di chiesa. Chianti Classico
Yes.
è minimo 80%.
Because I do get a bit of black fruits, a bit of herbaceousness from the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yes, this is a blend, as Gabriele was saying, is a blend that has a minimum percentage of Cabernet Sauvignon. Generally, in our Chianti Classico Riserva, we have around 90% of Sangiovese.
Okay, interesting, yes.
Cabernet Sauvignon that generally is Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of Merlot that is composing the remaining 10-12% of the blend.
Yeah, interesting, yes. On the nose on the nose for secondary notes, I do get a bit of oak influence, smoky notes, toastiness, a bit of sweet vanilla spice, and I think this bottle of wine is aging well. Tertiary wise, I get a bit of savoriness, some meat, forest floor, a bit of tomato leaves, and then for people in Asia, something very interesting. I do get a bit of black olives and some soya sauce as well. And I from the nose, I can see that the oak influence blend very well with the fruits and the tertiary. And I understand for reservoir, the minimum requirement for aging is 24 months with 3 months in bottle aging. So how is this bottle of wine aged?
Sì, l'affinamento è un affinamento misto. Intanto partiamo dal blend. Il blend viene fatto dopo la fermentazione manolattica e viene fatto un affinamento come blend, quindi come taglio già fatto.
The aging, the oak aging of the Chianti Classico Riserva is done also separately, the different varieties, because each variety is vinified separately, and then the blend, Gabriele is saying, is done after the malolactic fermentation.
Good, excellent.
L'affinamento viene fatto in botti di grandi dimensioni, quindi botti da 90 e 60 ettolitri in rovere francese, leggermente tostate, quindi le note di affinamento che te hai illustrato sono corrette, sono quelle che provengono proprio dall'affinamento in botte.
The aging is done in a barrel of 60 and 90 hectoliters with light, these are barrels with a light toast. E
parte del Cabernet viene fatto in barrique da 350.
And the Cabernet is aged in a barrel of 350 liters. And also for what concern the barrique, generally we use a very light toast. So the notes that you are underlining of is coming predominantly from the aging.
Dura circa un anno.
I can see that this is extremely well balanced. I mean, the oak is not using the strong American oak that can overpower the fruits, that can overpower the tertiary requirements. Then on the palate, let's taste. On the palate, it's dry, very vibrant acidity, very high acidity. Medium plus tannin, very soft, very silky, very nice tannin. Medium alcohol, medium body. I can confirm that it has a lot of vibrant red fruits, a lot of herbal notes, thymes, basil, wood, a lot some toastiness and smoke, some slight hint of vanilla, tertiary notes of gamey, some animal notes, soya sauce and black olives. I think this is this wine is very well balanced. The acidity balanced very well with the vibrant fruits. Tannins with the alcohol, sense of body as you roll down your palate, and a medium plus finish. Although the finishing is not very wrong, but it gives me a memory of tobacco notes, a memory of gaminess, a memory of soy sauce.
Anthony, what would you pair this with if you were pairing with Malaysian dishes? How would you pair this wine?
Yeah, as I was going, I think the Italians will pair it with a lot of roast dishes, a lot of cheese, a lot of pasta. So Malaysia, as you all know, is a very multiracial country. So I'll start with a bit of Chinese food. We have a roast platter that consists of roast chicken, roast duck, roast pork, and what we call char siu. I think the acidity will eat well into the fattiness of the meat. The gaminess, the soy sauce, and the red fruits blends really well with the meatiness as well. Then we have the Malay culture, a dish called satay, which is made of barbecue chicken. So which grill and give you some very vibrant meat and toast and smokiness of the meat. So it really blends well with the oakiness, and the high acidity really eats well into the fattiness of the meat, as well as the tannin goes well with the protein as well. Then for those who are adventurous, especially for Indian food, there's a cheese called jalapeno, which is very well. I think the concentration goes very well with the Chianti Classico as well. But actually, I just had something just now for my dinner, and we in Malaysia is in a semi-lockdown mode. I think Italians as well is in a semi-lockdown mode. I like to share everyone to try something adventurous when you're watching a movie. Try Chianti Classico Reservoir with potato chips. I think what it will sour cream and onion potato chips. I'll believe that the savouriness, the saltiness will bring the fruits out, and this Chianti Classico Reservoir has a bit of umami. I think it goes really well with the potato chips. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.
And,
Is that specifically with the sour cream and onion? Because those are my favorite potato chips. Are those the?
Yes.
I'm getting hungry.
And last but not least, thank you very much, because we do conduct WSET classes level 2, level 3 in Malaysia, and Banfi Chianti Classico Reservoir is one of our selection. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I miss Malaysian food. Sooner or later, I will jump on a plane again.
We have lots of our friends joining us saying that sour cream and onion is their favorite potato chip. So that's an interesting pairing that I've never heard of before, but now I'm going to try it. All right, I believe we're moving on to the next wine that we're going to taste, which would be the Asca Bolgheri Rosso DOC with our friend from Singapore, Mr. Daisuke Kawai.
Hi, good evening or good morning, everybody. So I'm gonna taste this wine, Castello Banfi Asca Bolgheri Rosso, vintage 2017. The wine appearance, the color is the dark ruby red because of the Cabernet Sauvignon dominant wine. I guess like 85% Cabernet Sauvignon and less is Cabernet Franc. And the edge is slightly hint of purple color because 2017, it's still three years the young wine. For the nose, I can find exactly the black currant from the Cabernet Sauvignon, and red cherry, black plum from the fruits, and also the oak, vanilla, clove, some black pepper, cedar note, because this wine is aged in a French barrique for 10 months. It's quite a dry style nose, and let's gonna taste. The attack is quite aggressive, dry, but elegant style. The tannin is still strong, so I recommend to decant before you drink, unless you prefer the more strong taste. The tannin is quite softened because of the vintage. If I talk, 2017 is from the beginning, winter, spring, all the way summer. It's quite drier than other average year. Then, but the temperature is slightly higher, so the grape matured in the sugar level, so that's why the alcohol is nicely 14%, and the body also nice. But at the end, I believe that Cabernet Sauvignon harvested like September middle, like Cabernet Sauvignon is the late life grapes. At the end of the autumn, I had that slightly light the raining. So that rain, the moderate the wine to drink very elegant. So I recommend to temperature like 16 degrees and food pairing. I can guess the Singapore food, unique one, coffee flavored pan-seared pork. The coffee flavor has a bit of sweetness and bitterness that match with the same character of wine. And also the pork is slightly fat, but the wine's acidity cut off the fattiness. So it is the perfect pairing. Otherwise, Italian restaurant is also popular in Singapore. So bistecca alla fiorentina or Japanese cuisine, of course, it's very popular in Singapore. Maybe the Wagyu shabu shabu is nice. And the name of wine, the Aska, is such a coincidence. I am originally from Japan. I'm representing Singapore today and staying here for 10 years. But I'm from Japan. The Asuka is sometimes used for the female name or the ancient Japanese period, like 600, 7th century. And also I heard that Asuka means the Etruscan name of the wine. The wine container, like amphora, so such a romantic name for the wine. Sorry, Mr. Enrico Gabriele, why did you put the name of the Aska for this wine?
But the name Aska has been not decided by the winemaker or by myself, but was also a good idea from the marketing department, because Bolgheri is in one of the oldest Etruscan territory, where there was used a lot by the Etruscan this terracotta jar. And Aska is in the Etruscan language the name of this container that was used a lot during the Etruscan and the Roman, by the Greek, the Roman, and the Etruscan, as the container used both for storage of the wine as well as also for aging on a certain way, or aging of the wine. That is known in the Italian language as amphora, that generally are these content. So the idea was to give to this name, to give to this wine a name that is also remembering what are the historical origin of that region.
Okay, thank you so much. So at the end, I want to talk about a little bit Bolgheri DOC. That is the Bolgheri DOC is of course in Toscana, but like 2 hours from Florence, Firenze, and face to the Tyrrhenian Sea. It's actually very close, similar to the Bordeaux terroir, like gravel and facing to the sea. So that's why this wine very special for the Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc. Then that code started from 1970s, 80s, Super Toscana, because before that, only the Sangiovese, Brunello is the traditional grape from the Toscana region. But to the beginning, like 1944, the very firstly, the pioneer planted the Cabernet Sauvignon in Bolgheri region. It's not traditional grape, but making very, very nice wine. So that's why the people, we call it Super Toscana. But nowadays, more the Bolgheri, the name is coming up. So I want to say this is a nice Bolgheri also. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tasting and sharing the wines with us. We're going to move on to our third wine now. The next wine that we will be tasting the Brunello di Montalcino 2015 with Mr. Isao Miyajima from Japan. Okay. I'm really jealous you get to taste this wine. I love Brunello. It's such a beautiful wine.
It's really a beautiful wine. I tasted in the winery last September, and I'm very happy to taste it again now when the wine is ready. So, Brunello di Montalcino, Poggio alle Mure, 2015. This is a great wine, great Brunello, a modern Brunello of an exceptional vintage. 2015 was a warm vintage, but without the extreme heat. So it's a very balanced vintage with a perfect maturation. Very dark ruby color of impressive intensity. So the nose of ripe fruits, perfectly ripe fruits of a blackberry, cherry, and also a delicious floral scent of violet. And the spice, coffee, tobacco, and also the Mediterranean herb. So the nose is very complex, but very pure and very clean. In the mouth, it is a huge wine, but very round and drinkable also now. Important tannin, but very soft, fine, and sweet tannin. So if this wine has a great aging potentiality, but if you want, you can also drink it now, enjoy it now, maybe with a beef steak, bistecca alla Fiorentina, or a Kobe beef if you are in Japan. So it's very drinkable. Naturally, it will be getting better and better for decades with the aging. But it is enjoyable now. It's a very important point of modern Brunello. Not everybody has a possibility to age the wine for decades in the cellar. So it should be very good when it is released. So 2015 is a vintage of great maturation. And I think probably the 2016 will be a more classic vintage, but both are great vintage. So we are very lucky to be able to enjoy two great vintage in the near future. So this great Brunello is also an exceptional terroir wine, which represents perfectly in the southwest part of Montalcino. That magnificent slope which go down from the township of Montalcino to Maremma, where the exposure to the sun is higher and the climate is mild and temperate. The soil is calcareous clay with a lot of stone. The ideal condition for the viticulture, where the vineyard benefits the delicious, beautiful sea breeze from the near Tyrrhenian Sea, which gave a hint of Mediterranean herb, the salty finish, so the Mediterranean character. So this terroir is a harmonious combination of the continental element of the Montalcino hills and the Mediterranean element of the Tyrrhenian Sea. So it's a beautiful expression of the terroir of Poggio alle Mure. This great Brunello also represents perfectly the Banfi spirit, this wine was born after many, many years of the soil study, zonation study, clonal selection, the research of the vinification of the Sangiovese, the extraction of the tannin. So this study began around 1980. The first vintage of Poggio alle Mure is 1997. So they spent almost 20 years for give a birth of this territory wine. So it's a Banfi spirit. When I visit the winery of Banfi, there is always something new to discover, something new to know. So Banfi, from the beginning, from the foundation, continued and continue experimentation, innovation, looking for the highest quality of Brunello. So thank you. Cheers.
Thank you so much. It's a beautiful
Thank you, Zhao.
description. I'm curious, Mr. Miyajima, how long would you, for you personally, when would you drink this wine? Would you open it now or would you let it age longer?
If I drink this wine with bistec or some fat meat or lamb, I can enjoy also today. But after 20 years, it should be very good. It's always very good. And I wanted to say it. I can enjoy this wine also by himself. So like a meditation wine. No, we are always now closed at home. But if I have Poggio alle Mure at home, I'm very happy.
It is fine to stay home with the Poggio alle Mure. That's fine.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our last wine now. We're going to be tasting a Brachetto with Mr. Roger Chow, representing China.
Hi everyone. You should actually jealous about me to have these 60 bottles with me. This is really nice and beautiful bottles over here. And I will not open it until I'm going to test it. So here we go.
Have you chilled that, Roger? Is it a little bit cold or what temp is that at?
Very cold. It's been here for a long time. So let's try it. Check this out. That's a beautiful color. It's a beautiful ruby red, isn't it? So nice. It is so nice, so lovely, so sexy. Like a rose to me. Very beautiful. I feel myself. It's in the garden full with roses. It's amazing. What we started to do is with the observation. Maybe you guys cannot see very clearly from here, but from my side, with a very beautiful little creamy bubbles just keep rising up, and it's very consistency. And here you can see this is a very high quality sparkling wine with this sort of bubbles rising up. So amazing. Look at this, and look at these bubbles, and with this beautiful color. And I feel like this is the amazing morning dew and on the roses petals. What do you think? It's beautiful. It's so pretty.
Yeah, I love that color so much. You don't see, at least here, I don't see sparkling red wines nearly as often as, sparkling champagne or a white wine. So I love the color there.
It is so sexy. And it's a very high, it's a highly aromatic wine. And I can get very good red and black, and even the blueberries over here. And the acidity is amazing, because this is actually this is a sweet sparkling wine, and with this crisp acidity just turns up all the complexity and balance all the sugar and acid. This is beautiful. And apart from these acidities, I can catch quite a lot of lychee or honeydews honey melons, and even the dry rose petal and some dry strawberry and the fresh strawberries, but with a dry raspberries. It's amazing. And interesting, very interesting. I feel like I'm drinking a Muscadet, but in a different way. It's a lot more going on with this Moscato, with this beautiful color and the nice acidity, very soft and tiny silky acidity to balance all those sweetness. This is amazing. And with the bubble, I have to add again the bubbles. There's a very soft and creamy bubbles to go around it, and makes the wine feel very elegant and unique. And for the food pairing, I really think this is very beautiful dessert wine to go with tiramisu. That's very, very unique. And it can be the dessert wine, and it also can be the aperitif. Like I think this is also because with this good acidity, this is so good to open up my palate and make me like welcome all the different types of food into my mouth. I feel a lot of like feel of the watering. This is so nice. Yeah. Wow. But I would like to recommend for some local dishes. And if you came to China before, our hot pot is obviously the best thing to match it, because the Chengdu hot pot is spicy and with quite a lot. It's quite oily, and the acidity over here can get rid of the oil very, very nicely, and also the sweetness can get rid of those spiciness immediately. So this can make me eat more. This is such a great pairing with the hot pot in Chengdu. With the local food, because I'm from Xiamen City, which is the city by the seaside, local, just opposite to Taiwan. And we have a lot of seafood, but we have the seafood satay noodle. It's quite similar to the last one, but a lot more sweeter. So I think this is definitely the best one to go with our like satay noodle. It's nice. And I would like to appreciate this wine, and I do have a question to both of you. And does anyone try to use this wine to propose? Because it just from the design and from the color, it does look like a bunch of roses. Does anyone use it to propose? For the wedding, it's so sexy. Did you come up with any marketing idea in the management committee, something like that?
We need to start marketing this way. If you don't want to use champagne, then put the ring in a glass of Brachetto and
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So this is for me. I really love this wine, Brachetto. It's really amazing. Well done. I love the acidity balancing with the sweetness, and it's elegant. It's beautiful. Everyone should use it to propose. You know.
All right, we're gonna start using that now. Especially if it smells like roses as well, then that would be a beautiful thing to use. So I have a question for you, which I should know, but I don't. But the area where this comes from, where is this in relation to Montalcino and Chianti Classico? Where is it from?
The area The area of Brachetto is a very small area in the south of Piedmont that is on the border between Piedmont and Liguria in the Acqui region. Is very south part of Piedmont, and Brachetto Brachetto d'Acqui, which is the variety that used for Rosa Regale, is a very ancient variety in Piedmont that was almost disappeared from cultivation until the 80s. And Banfi on that years was absolutely one of the winery together with other wineries in Piedmont to basically create a kind of new age for Brachetto d'Acqui, experimenting the sparkling version, because originally Brachetto d'Acqui was used in the ancient time predominantly to do a still version that is a very particular wine, but became a very niche and very difficult wine to also to approach. The sparkling version was an evolution of the 80s, and this gives a particular characteristic in terms of color, because Brachetto d'Acqui is 100% done with the same grape. Brachetto d'Acqui has this particular color, and this kind of, let's say, balance or marriage between a little bit of tannin structure versus the sweetness of the variety. So it's sweet, but in a certain way not so sweet like other aromatic varieties cultivated in Piedmont. There's a very different range of food pairing according also to the country. In Italy, use more as a dessert wine. In other countries, use more as a lunch wine, or use also for a lot for brunches, or also for aperitif, as an example. It says that this is particular, but is originally only from a very, very small area in the south of Piedmont that is called the Acqui region.
Yeah. I understand. I mean, this is quite close to Asti area, right? And the reason that I love it better because I do feel like with this color and the color stretching, and I don't really feel a lot of tannin in there. Actually, it's quite silky, and it adds up more complexity than Asti do. So this is how I feel like, wow, this is amazing. I can drink it all the time because from Asti, I feel like it's too sweet, and there's no such a complexity to go with it to match all the other foods. So this is amazing one. Yeah.
Yeah, and the difference between the Asti, yes, it's close. It's basically within, we can say, the area of Moscato d'Asti. And the difference of Brachetto is that the color is coming from a very little skin contacts, while the Moscato d'Asti is not having any kind of skin contacts process. And let's say this is a variety that has a little bit of an higher acidity versus what is generally the Moscato d'Asti.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like a beautiful wine. I can't wait to try them. I have them here. I just haven't opened any of them yet. I should just put my Rosa Regale in the fridge right now and then wait for lunch. I'll just open it for lunch.
I'm going to take it for dinner now.
I mean, yeah, it's very early in the morning where I am, so it's a little bit too early for me, but I'll wait on this.
So,
all right. Thank you very much, Roger, for tasting with us again. It's always a pleasure to see you. So we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the cellar now. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about Banfi as the property? One of the friends who on our chat was talking about your sustainable viticultural practices. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do in the vineyard and in the winery to make your production sustainable?
Sustainability practice, more than a practice, I prefer to define sustainability as a philosophy that Banfi approach since the very beginning in different ambience, from management, human resources management, to practices in the vineyards and into the winery. Generally, it's something that, of course, we are working on in different, based on different pillars. One, just to make a little example, one of probably a project that we are dedicating a lot of attention into the winery, and we have invested a lot, is that winemaking, it seems a joke, but winemaking is using a lot of water. That is what we use for cleaning our surfaces, cleaning the barrel, cleaning the tanks, and everything. And we have just developed a project where, with the technology that we have invested a lot, we are now able to recover more than 60% of the water that we utilize, in order to be on a certain way, in order to reduce the amount of water that we source from the natural ambience. For what concerns the vineyards, also developing the zonation study, as well as study that we did in the canopy management, are also going into the direction, of course, to reduce at a very low level what does any kind of practices, chemical practices, to face or to contain vineyard disease, as well as the micro irrigation system. That means, in order working in the concept of what is called now precision viticultural practices, in the sense that to really arrive to evaluate your territory in order to understand which vineyards, and within the same vineyards, what is really needed, because we are working on a territory that is a constellation of different characteristics. Then there is also all what is applicable to our human resources, in order to provide all our human resources working conditions that are at a higher standard, in terms of providing them all the tools and the equipments that, and the services that they may work in an ambience that is we can say more human friendly, that also in a period like what we are experiencing during the COVID, we have seen that is becoming a big value to guarantee to our human resources a secure ambience and a secure working ambience where they can work on. We are now, since 2015, doing what is called our sustainability balance sheet, that is going parallel to our economical balance sheet, where we trace all our practices and our target, working on the three main pillars of what is the sustainability philosophy, that is human resources, ambience, environment in general, and the economical sustainability of the sustainable practices.
Interesting. I know that sustainability has become very, very important to a lot of wineries these days, as we try to maintain both the quality and the production levels that you're used to seeing. Another question that I have for you is how are Italian wines perceived in Asia, or even Castello Banfi's wines in particular? How are they perceived in Asia in general?
This is a question that probably the people attending this chat can answer better than me, living in the different countries. First of all, from an Italian perspective, I think that we have to understand that we talk about Asia, but Asia means a lot of different markets, different cultures, different history. Like when you talk about Europe, and probably the difference that we have between I don't know Sweden and Greeks, probably it is as an impact also for what concerns the wine perception. The same is in Asia. There is, for what is my experience in the last 20 years, I have seen a growing attention or a growing interest versus Italy, also through the wine. Italy is a fascinating, but at the same time a complicated market for what concerns the wine, because we are a constellation of a lot of small appellations. And of course, there are now, at the beginning, appellations that were more popular, or they have more open doors in certain markets, and now it's following also from other appellations. It's in different, with all what I can say for what concerns the different aspects of Asia, I see a growing future versus in the different Asian markets, of course at a different rate, and also with a different let's say type of products, in the sense that also there are markets that are more oriented versus a certain product versus others, but it's a market that is growing not only in terms of volume, but a lot also thanks also to the educational job done by a lot of sommelier, F&B manager, expert, like the people that we have into this chat, to create a deeper knowledge and understanding of what Italy is from a wine perspective. Then there is the personal pleasure and the wine that you like more or less. But it's important also for us to more and more explain what Italy is from a wine perspective.
Yeah, it's Italy has so many different regions and so many different wines. It's fascinating, but also it can be quite a challenge to learn everything that you want to know. Anthony's saying Malaysia has a very similar palate to Italy, so Italian wines are very, very popular and well received in Malaysia. And of course, they have an excellent value for money compared with the French wines. So I always like to ask, there's that great rivalry between the French and Italian winemakers. How do you feel that in Asia, the Italian wines are rivaling French wines in popularity? What do you think about that?
I think we are, let's say, comparing things that are difficult to compare, in the sense that for a lot of aspects, French wine arrive into the Asian market much earlier than the Italian ones. Mm. And like in many other export markets, because that's his history. Italy did a different evolution versus the French wine, and this doesn't mean that Italian wines are better than French wine or vice versa. They are different, and we have also a different way, of course, to go to the market due to the different historical evolution. I don't think there is I think that there is a space in Asia for any single appellation and any single country for what concern the potential of this part of the world, like we have seen in other markets, like we have seen in US or in Canada or in other export markets. The question is, of course, there are countries that arrive in an earlier stage, and of course they are more, let's say, advanced into certain market versus than others. But this doesn't mean that this may stay forever. And the problem is to grow the, let's say, wine market as an overall, and not only working to let's say, steal a percentage of the market from a competitor, from a country which is competition. I think is a double. There are two levels of work that we have to do, because there are still many areas where we know that the wine knowledge, the European wine knowledge versus other countries, other non-European countries, is much limited. It's very at the beginning. So more we are able to educate or to explain really our wine culture, our product, and the culture that is behind the wine, more there will be space for more Italian wine to be sold in this market, but also for other European wines. It's not a war by one country, why Spain, France, or Italy wants to fight against the other. The problem is probably something that you have to work together as a European producer in certain markets.
Are your wines available in all of the markets where we that we talked to today? Singapore,
Yes.
Malaysia, Japan, China, they're all there. What other countries in Asia are your wines available in?
Wines, we are present in all Asia, of course, with the different, in all the Asian countries, of course, with different scale of the markets, but we have now our export manager based in Asia. One is based in Hong Kong and the other one is based in Ho Chi Minh. And we are covering all the Asian countries, for the Southeast to the North Asia. And let's say that virtually we are covering all the area.
Perfect. That's great. So anyone who's watching us should be able to go out and be able to find the wine in their home market if you're interested in tasting. We do need to wrap up here. So I wanted to thank all of the sommeliers for joining us today, and also to all of you at Banfi for spending some time with us today. Everybody's going to come back and say goodbye. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. I hope you all enjoyed the
Hope to see you soon at Castello Banfi in person.
Thanks very much to all of our friends who joined us watching. If you're interested, you can find out more if you look up, sorry, I'm actually looking for the website, but if you go to castellobanfi.com, you can find more information about the wines, and we hope to see you again for the next chat with Cellar and Friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.